Hi, everyone. It's Mimi, and today we have an interesting topic. Well, we always have interesting topics, but this one is called EMDR, which stands for Eye Movement Desensitization Therapy. And our important speaker, someone that knows a lot about this, and she's an EMDR therapist is Tammy Valicenti. Did I get the name? I always ask. Did I get it
You
right?
did. You did a great job, Mimi. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at Italian, Spanish, some accents and spellings, but I'm Italian too, so it
You
wasn't that
got it.
hard. So we're going to talk today about this, Tammy, and the primary focus of this type of therapy. And I myself have PTSD type problems, alcoholic father, alcoholic husband, abusive second husband, a lot of PTSD situations there, assault, attempted rape, a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And why I bring that up is I have dealt with a lot of that. But I have like amnesia from 5 years old till 12,
Mhm.
you know, and I've
Mhm.
often thought about trying to get those memories to see why, because I do not remember anything about
Mhm.
my young childhood years.
Mhm.
And I did have a psychiatrist at one point tried to hypnotize me, and he said, "Oh, you're one of those people that just can't be hypnotized."
Oh,
Probably because I'm like on guard, I don't
maybe,
want
maybe.
to
Yeah.
get there. And then he said something interesting to me. He said, your brain, your mind is a very powerful thing, and sometimes it's trying to protect you.
Mhm.
And amnesia is a way of protecting you. I found that very interesting.
Mhm.
So, what do you actually do with your patients, and what is a little bit about your background?
Ah, so
Thanks.
my background is I'm a social worker trained at Columbia University and a psychotherapist since then. And I really started my professional career working with survivors of domestic violence and rape and sexual assault.
Oh, I'm right here.
And while I was doing that work, I realized I cannot do that work unless I also have some knowledge and understanding of recovery. And so I did some of that work as well. So I worked with not survivors, with folks who are struggling with addictions.
Okay.
So as you know, there's an intersection with the two.
Yes, I'm
While I was
recovering
working with rape
for
and it's
years. Yeah, so I'm
congratulations. It's amazing.
alcoholic, so I'm 33 years sober. So yes, there is a connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oftentimes an overlap. I think, the statistics say something like 70 some odd percent of folks with PT, no, with who are in recovery also have PTSD or history of trauma. I would argue to say it's 100%. Um, so there's a very, very strong connection. I was originally initially trained in EMDR about 30 years ago or so. EMDR was brand new then. It's about a five years new. And I guess it's still a very brand new therapy.
Yeah, it's yeah, and it's how does it work exactly? I know it has to do with your eyes,
Mhm.
movement of your eyes and
Mhm.
desensitization of that things that are there
Mhm.
that are plaguing you. Explain a little bit how that works.
Sure. So originally, when Dr. Francine Shapiro first came across what's now called EMDR therapy, it was just a technique. She realized or noticed when she was moving her eyes back and forth and thinking about something disturbing, that those things became less disturbing. So she became curious about it.
Mhm.
And she developed EMDR out of that. It was EMD at the time. And since then, we now realize that you can be thinking about or bringing up any traumatic event and using any kind of bilateral stimulation, not just eye movements back and forth, but tones in your ears back and forth, or tapping on your shoulders back and forth, vibrations in your hands back and forth. Any bilateral stimulation will help reprocess that earlier traumatic event.
And you said bilateral.
Mhm.
And I sometimes use a process called tapping,
Mhm.
which is just actually tapping more in this area. So
Mhm.
that's not bilateral. So this way, like you're saying, on each arm, that's
Yes.
bilateral. So it doesn't
Yes.
need to be bilateral. I find that interesting.
Yes, it does need to be bilateral, meaning one side, then the other side. Now, if you think about it, bilateral is also the same sensation or what's happening during REM sleep. And during REM sleep, we are consolidating memory and processing emotions.
Mm.
So it's believed that the bilateral stimulation, the tapping, the tones or the music in your ears back and forth while you bring up a disturbing material helps process those really strong activating emotions and the memories and helps consolidate, meaning really ground that memory instead of
Repeat,
living in your body.
yeah. Repeat what you said about what happens during REM
Mm.
sleep.
So during REM sleep, that's the rapid eye movement um, phase of sleep where we are moving our eyes back and forth very quickly. During that sleep time, we are processing emotions and consolidating memory.
And is that through our dreams? Is that when we're dreaming?
Yes, it is.
I find that interesting because I dream every night. Um, they're always quite scripted, interesting, unusual stories. I remember them every morning, you know.
That's unusual.
It is unusual, I think. And
Mhm.
it's like they'll have characters, they'll have a plot, so to
Mhm.
say.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of them have to do with things that I'm powerless over, or I'm lost and trying to find solutions and everything else. And I just think that and my husband finds this unbelievable because he never remembers any of his dreams and he does not dream that often. So I'm like, well, obviously my mind's a lot of stuff back there.
You're trying to work out a lot.
I think so because it's
Hmm.
and I mean and I don't wake up like necessarily in a bad mood or anything, but
Hmm.
there's processing going on when I sleep for
Yeah.
sure. And I have been in therapy when I first got sober for like 9 years straight, and I did
Hmm.
all kinds of therapy. I did inpatient, outpatient, group, single, and I worked on family of origin and
Hmm.
immense types of things, and
Hmm.
cried and yelled and screamed and did all kinds of types of therapy where they make you do those things,
Hmm.
and of course AA for all these years and doing those steps, which make you look at yourself. And so I think I've been very, very thorough. And I do have chronic depression, anxiety disorder, but that's to be expected with my past, you know.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um, and the good thing is that I'm aware,
Hmm.
that I'm vigilant. And 2020, I got very depressed. Who didn't? It was either
Yes.
anxiety or depression, either
Absolutely. Yeah.
and and I sought out therapy again, and I do it on Zoom, and I'm still doing it. So it's
Good for
like
you.
I'm on my fifth year, but I found a very good therapist every 2 weeks, and I got a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. I'm a caregiver
Hmm.
with the
Hmm.
husband with Parkinson's, maybe stage 4. He's definitely stage 3.
That's
So
a
there's
lot.
there's a
Hmm.
lot. It's
Hmm.
like he's falling all the time and his mind is going and but anyway, enough about me. I just hope that people realize what I'm saying is the importance of therapy and taking care of yourself mentally as well as physically,
Absolutely. And all through the lifespan.
all through the lifespan. And that
Hmm.
brings me to my next question.
Hmm.
when we read about EMDR therapy, a lot of times it's used for younger people and teenagers. And I'm wondering, is there a well, I don't know if there's a reason, but is it also used for older people and seniors?
Yes, it's used for folks all through the lifespan, even young ages, children who are doing more play therapy and sorts of things like that. Yes, with children and all through the lifespan. In fact, I've mostly used EMDR with folks, 20s, 30s through 70s or so.
Oh, okay, good.
Uh-huh.
Sorry about that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
the side effects with it sometimes are headaches, or what else do you find?
Um, it's funny. I think when done properly, you're not going to have a lot of side effects. It's a very quick and deep process. So you are going to feel a lot typically, and you may be really tired after a session, at least after the first 1 to 3 sessions or so. But
Yeah.
if you have a therapist who is really helping you to regulate, kind of dipping your toe in and out and helping you stay regulated and in the present, you
Wow,
really shouldn't have any side effects.
that's good to know. I know,
Yeah.
I know in early recovery, and all the different types of therapy I did, that for me, there was a lot of crying involved and there's a lot of emotion, and I was so tired afterwards, of course.
Yeah.
And even to this day, like there's a thing, like I don't cry, and I don't know what that's about, but I don't cry.
Mm.
I mean, we watch movies that are so sad,
Mhm.
and my husband's crying, and I'm like, well, it's sad, but,
Yeah.
and I think that is part of my protection that I built up around myself from all my trauma, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the only time I cry is when I am angry or extremely frustrated, and that's tears of, right.
Frustration. Yes.
That's a
Yes.
different type of crying, you know.
Absolutely. The crying that you're saying you don't do, it sounds like it's very much related to vulnerability. And for you, vulnerability meant lack of safety, and it's a protective measure to not cry. We all have varying capacities to cry or not cry based on our
Yeah,
history.
being vulnerable is not an option yet. I don't know if
Hmm.
it ever will be. It's not an option for me. It's
Hmm.
not. And I deal with that. I recognize it,
Hmm.
which is a good thing. You know,
Yep.
I recognize I need to be in control,
Yep.
and I know it. And I tell my friends, like, this is me, and nothing personal.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
to have things put in a certain place. And oh my God, my
Yeah.
cleaning woman leaves, and I spend an hour walking around putting everything back exactly the way I had.
That's one of the greatest things about this modality is that it allows folks who don't typically access those emotions, which really is energy, to access that energy and to discharge it. Because EMDR is a very somatically based or body-based therapy. Because we're not only thinking about or bringing up a memory and the emotions involved, but we're also focusing on the body and where we're feeling it. So it really allows us to access and discharge sensations and emotions that perhaps haven't been accessed before.
Yeah.
Mm.
And let me ask you this. What is positive cognition? What does that? Explain that to us.
Mhm. A positive cognition is a positive thought or positive belief.
Hmm.
So in EMDR, if we are targeting, say, a negative memory or something that's difficult, we may process that. And then at the end, you'll start to see the positive cognition come in. So, for example, I worked with someone once who was assaulted, and toward the end of that processing, instead of having been assaulted, she pushed him off of her and ran out of the apartment. And
Ah,
so
okay.
the negative belief about herself before the processing, before that session was, I am unsafe. I am vulnerable. I can't keep myself safe.
Hmm.
After that processing, was replaced with a positive cognition of, I can keep myself safe. I am okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting. It's like I'm a survivor. So okay, I'm a survivor of a lot of things. And the attempted rape, I survived that because I used my brain, and I talked him into going to a less public place because it was an alley.
Mhm.
And I said, let's go to my father's garage. And halfway there, and then um, my body took over. Not, just it wasn't me. It just happened. I started
Mhm.
screaming.
Mhm.
And it wasn't me saying, let me scream. It just happened.
Yep. Mm.
And that's how neighbors came out and chased him away. So I've always been good with abusive husbands, whatever the situation was, of finding a way to survive it and
Mhm.
to fight it. And so I don't have that helpless feeling
Mhm.
so much as I have the be on guard feeling, maybe.
Mhm. Mhm.
Always be aware, and not be too, I don't want to be too soft. And
Mhm.
you get what I'm saying? Like it's
I
more,
do. So there's a hypervigilance you're
that's it.
describing. Hmm.
That's it.
Hmm.
Hypervigilance.
Hmm.
And I know I had a therapist tell me once, which was very important. Okay, you were a victim, so to speak, of violence and all that stuff growing up when you were younger. And then you became a survivor, right? Okay. Because you sought help for yourself too. But now
Yes.
you have to merge those two things.
Hmm.
And now you are maybe not a wholly healed person, but a healing, healthy person. You're
Hmm.
no longer a victim and get
Hmm.
out of that survivor mode. See, that's the hard part, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. And in addition to the EMDR, the type of EMDR that I've come to practice and that I have kind of developed isn't just EMDR, but it's a kind of an IFS infused EMDR, so to speak, or a parts work EMDR. IFS meaning internal family systems therapy. And
Oh,
when you're telling me a story like that, what I hear is there's really two parts of me. There's that part that's a survivor, that is powerful, that has agency, and then there's this other part that was victimized in a lot of ways. And how do I merge those two to become that one? And the way to really do it is to get to know the different parts of you really well. Um, and through that process, you're able to integrate and become more whole.
yeah.
Mhm.
And back to 2020, and this fits.
Mhm.
My depression and my anxiety, they
Mhm.
arose, of course.
Mhm.
And we didn't leave the house because I have health problems, autoimmune, his situation. And,
Mhm.
people just didn't understand it, COVID. They
Yeah.
didn't know. So by doing that and, you know, secluding myself, that came back. And my therapist told me to start writing, which I had never looked into or tried. And I ended up writing my memoir.
Mm.
And what's a little different about it is
Mhm.
in each incident, um, I tell the reader what I now know about the psychology behind what was going on.
Oh,
You see what I'm
cool.
saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So what you're saying is kind of what I did.
yes.
Um, it not only helped me, but my readers really liked that approach. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'll plug my book. Raised by Wolves. That
Mhm.
was my parents. Trapped by Demons. That was the husband's. And then later on, I found out I had my own demons, and that came out in the alcoholism.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
the book really um, is a pathway through a lot of hard stuff.
Mhm.
I've had people tell me that, put the book down, people that know me.
Mhm.
It's harder to read the book when you know the person and then you're
Absolutely.
reading terrible things.
Yes.
And they'd have to put it down and then they pick it back up.
Mhm.
But then I'd make them laugh, like something nap, and because that's my personality. That's my
Yeah.
personality. And
Yeah.
it's also a coping strategy for me, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah,
You're helping so many through your own story.
I hope so. I
Mhm.
hope so. And I am trying to, like I talk to everybody. I mean, I'll talk to a stranger on the street. I'll talk to anybody. That's my personality.
Mhm.
And if I see, I can kind of tell who I should tell about the book.
Mhm.
Most times it's women, but sometimes it's a man. And
Mhm.
I had a 16-year-old boy read the book, and I didn't know him. And I found about it later because he was a friend of my grandson, who's
Mhm.
16, that he said, Nana, he bought your book and read it, and he follows you on Instagram.
Oh,
I was thrilled.
that's sweet.
It's sweet and it's very eye-opening to me
Hmm. Hmm.
that, and who knows if maybe there's alcoholism in his family, maybe he himself is in some kind of a bad situation.
Yeah, there's something it sounds like that he relates
Yeah.
to for
So
sure.
that
Yeah.
was interesting.
Hmm.
So in this process, when you're doing this therapy, I think I read about a window, excuse me, a window of tolerance. Can you explain
Hmm.
what that is?
Yeah, our window of tolerance varies from person to person. And the window of tolerance is the place we want to stay in during this process and generally in life, where no matter what life throws us, no matter where the therapy goes, that we can manage what comes at us. It's when our window of tolerance is really wide that we're functioning optimally. If
Hmm.
we have a very small window of tolerance, there's very little that we can tolerate emotionally and what life has to throw at us. So, when doing this kind of therapy, we want to stay within the window of tolerance so that we can process our history. When we're out of bounds and we're overactivated, then we're
Hmm.
going to have difficulty processing the emotions and staying kind of keeping ourself on board because outside of that window of tolerance, we may dissociate. And
Okay.
and then a lot of the processing really isn't happening. You may be re-traumatizing at that point. Does that make sense?
Now, it's up, I would imagine it's up to the client to let you know if he or she is getting to that window of too much. You
Mhm.
might not pick up on it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's absolutely a dual process because depending on the clinician, I can feel a lot even from across the world, as I'm sitting in the space with you, I realize that a lot of other people and a lot of clinicians cannot, I can feel those energies. Also with dissociation, you might not be feeling anything, you might be feeling less. So it's a give and take. It's me as the guide questioning, asking, feeling, noticing what I'm feeling inside of me may be coming from you. And it's also the client communicating, this feels like a little too much.
Yeah.
In the first few sessions, I am saying, you're the boss here. You say stop whenever you need to stop. You say pause whenever we need to pause. And even with that preset, I will still be checking in. How does that feel? Where you're feeling it? Should we take a break? Do you want to put a pause on this?
Hmm.
So there's lots of opportunities to do that.
Good. I'm actually right now reading a book, The Body Keeps the Score, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And it's so fascinating to me because I have so many things that I could say to myself, yep, the body keeps the score. I have Sjogren's syndrome. I have small nerve fiber neuropathy. I have a ton of things, that I really do blame on the difficult, we'll call it difficult life I had the first half of my life. So I would say well, I'm just gonna come right out and say it because it's in the book, so I might as well say it to everybody. Um, my mother tried to abort me. Now, the reason I know that is when she was older, and I always thought she didn't like me, and she was a very cold woman, and I was the oldest of four. and my father did like me. And maybe she was jealous. I don't know. Anyway, um, she finally had to go into a nursing home. And of course, I was the adult child that had to take care of all that. The other children weren't as responsible, whatever. And while she was there, I gave her a journal. She never did things like that. But I said, Mom, after you're gone, I don't know enough about your life. I'd like you to like write in the journal. And I come to visit and I'd see that she hadn't written much. So I'd sit down with her and I'd say, well, tell me, who was your best friend growing up? And
Hmm.
things like that. So when she died, of course, the journal went to me, and I came home and I went to the chapter that said, how did you feel when you found out you were pregnant with me?
Mm.
And in this journal, which I had given her, which she knew would come back to me after she died, she wrote, well, we didn't have a lot of money, so I kept jumping off up and down off the stairs and taking mustard baths. Now, she basically said, I tried to abort you. I mean, I am like so amazed of, and to analyze that, did you hate me that much my whole life that you wrote that in that book? Or were you in some form of dementia that you wrote that down? But I always felt since I read that,
Mhm.
wow, you know, that was so vindictive. And what's
That's a
your
lot to
feeling of,
process, a lot to carry. What
yeah,
was your question?
what do you think of her writing that, right? In that,
My thoughts go to a lot of things. I think I was more concerned with protecting you and worrying about and caring about what your reaction was.
yeah,
Um, and it's interesting. I didn't see it as a personal as anything personal because of course she didn't know you, although maybe it showed up later. But I
yeah.
was really wondering about and thinking about mom's maybe narcissistic stance that she's not considering anyone else.
You're right. You're actually right. It turns out, and it's so funny, not funny, strange. My dad, being the alcoholic, you would think he would be the most violent and abusive person.
Hmm.
But when he drank, he just liked to sit you down and talk to you all night, and you wanted to just,
Hmm.
And I would sit there and I wouldn't say a word. And he'd tell me how bad his childhood was and da 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 da. And the one night he said to me, you know what? If looks could kill, I would be dead right now. Because all of it must come through my eyes. Because I've always been told I can't hide emotion on my
Hmm.
face. I have a very expressive face and I'm not capable.
Yeah, yeah.
But my brother Joe, he's close to me in age. I think he got a little aggressive and violent sometimes, but more of a when he was a teenager, one-on-one,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
rolling around on the floor, like
Hmm.
they were peers fighting. And my brother Matt was too young, and my sister Ann. But after I wrote the book, my brother Joe told me, he said, you didn't know this, but when no one was home,
Hmm.
and I was alone with mom, she would tie me up in the basement and beat me with a rubber hose.
Oh, so
And she
sorry. That's
would tell
awful.
me
Hmm.
my life would be so much better if you were never born. Now, to me, this woman definitely was a sick woman.
Hmm. Absolutely. She was not well, for sure.
No, but she
Hmm.
hid it. She hid it from the world. They just
Hmm.
thought she was this nice, sweet woman, but she
Hmm.
wasn't,
No.
you know.
Yeah.
And it was easier for me to forgive my father because I knew he had a disease and I
Hmm.
and I knew a lot about his life as
Hmm.
adopted.
Hmm.
So wow, it's like amazing. You don't know what's going on in someone's home or life when they're out in society and they seem like even a happy person.
Right. Right. So many of us hide so much, our untold stories, secrets.
And it comes out, I think
Mhm.
then we deal with it sometimes with addictions and
Mhm.
things to numb our feelings.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
And even for you, you started today's conversation with a story about you and having amnesia for certain ages. And absolutely, that's a protective mechanism. It's kind of the one end of the dissociation spectrum. And I would argue that you do have memories from that period of time. You just can't access them cognitively, but they are for sure stored in your body as dis-ease and unprocessed and
Yeah.
unspoken emotions.
Yeah, you're
Mhm.
right. And because I said to my brother, how did I not know this?
Right.
How could I not know this was going on? I never
Mhm.
saw any
Mhm.
hostile actions um, towards any of us with my mother.
Mhm.
Cold,
Mhm.
coldness, but
Mhm.
she never kissed us or hugged us. That was
Mhm.
interesting, which
Mhm.
I don't think I realized how major that was until later on in life.
Yeah. And would you consider that hostile, not hugging and kissing your children?
Yeah, I would think,
Mhm.
and now I would
Yeah.
see it. I
Yeah.
didn't understand it when I was young. And
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, it's interesting. But I think the majority of alcoholics and addicts that I have met
Mhm.
do have trauma in their lives and things that they never dealt with. I don't believe people just drink and want a life of debauchery or whatever.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
actually own two bars in my life.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I knew, yeah, yeah, and I knew many, 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 many alcoholics.
Mhm.
I was still drinking.
Mhm.
And then, of course, I knew many after I stopped that I tried to help.
Mhm.
And I saw people that were the sweetest, nicest, most intelligent people when they came in and ordered that first drink.
Mhm.
By the end of the night, they were totally different people.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Totally different people.
Yeah.
And I saw such levels of despair with people when they drank because you're hurting yourself.
Mhm.
I was a functional drinker for a long time,
Mhm.
so I didn't think I was hurting myself. And I was a good mother even when I drank. I mean,
Mhm.
my kids really can't say anything because I've asked them.
I love it. That's great.
I mean, I think the one daughter, like she just dug to try to find something. And I said, we're going to go to therapy. So we went to therapy and I said, I'd like, this is my amends in AA. I'm making amends to you, but I think we need to process this with a counselor
Mhm.
present.
Mhm.
And at the end of the session, counselor said to her, she said, well, all I heard you say about your mother and when she was drinking is that she had bad taste in men.
That's great.
I felt very vindicated. I mean, even though
Yeah.
it wasn't a compliment,
Yeah, right. Oh, that's sweet.
your chance to say, I beat you or I did something,
Right,
terrible.
right.
But that's a whole nother scenario of
Mhm.
her process and whatever she went through and things that she probably went through that I might not even know about,
Mhm. Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I think there are some things she went through that I don't know about when she was younger. But
Mhm.
I thought that was funny. She
It
had
is
good
funny.
taste in me.
It's
So
funny.
it
And the
is.
truth is, we're not getting out of childhood without something. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely I look through the lenses of trauma very liberally. I think a lot of times when we talk about it, we talk about the big T traumas, abuse and crashes and, tragic losses. But the truth is that to be human is to be traumatized.
Course it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm into, am not in a normal everyday religion like Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, whatever. I'm in like a spiritual group,
Mhm.
a spiritual community.
Mhm.
And so we investigate all kinds of different phenomena. Our minds
Mhm.
are very open and I'm looking into a theory about star seeds
Mhm.
that you have to be very egotistical to think that you are the only living intellectual being in the universe.
Hmm.
Like when people say, "Oh, there's no aliens," I go, "Do you really think that we're it? Like this is it?" Because I don't. I cannot
Yeah.
believe that.
That would be hard to believe.
Yeah, but there's people that really think you're crazy if you bring it up.
Mhm.
And so the starseed thing is basically, it'd make a good movie. That there is a planet that's very well ahead of us in every way.
Mhm.
And they looked down at us and said, "Oh my God, they're killing each other down there. They're destroying their planets, whatever. We got to help them."
Mhm.
And this was 1976, a book by Brad Steiger called Gods of Aquarius. So it is a theory that has been held for a couple decades now.
Oh.
And supposedly they sent these star seeds down to implant into certain humans
Mhm.
to not change that because they believe in free will.
Mhm.
It's kind of interesting,
Mhm.
but to sort of push them to be better people in order to help their own planet. I find that very intriguing.
Mhm.
So I wrote a book called Anatomy of an Alien, and in that I put the idea forth that possibly one of those star seeds implemented into my mother's womb when I was a fetus and
Mhm.
saved me from being killed.
Anything's possible.
Anyway, but it's like I have all
Mhm.
these medical problems that, and some of them are a little bit odd, or I would, every time I go to a doctor, they go, "Oh, I never saw anything like this," or "You're a little bit different than most people," blah, blah, blah.
Interesting.
So, so this book is a paranormal
Mhm.
medical mystery.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's called,
Anatomy of an Alien.
all right.
So the anatomy, of course, is all about my medical
Mhm.
oddities
Mhm.
and things that are different.
Mhm.
And then I talk about the starseed theory. And I have survived many, many things that should have killed me. Illnesses,
Mhm.
accidents,
Mhm.
very abusive. I had a gun held to my head. I mean, I've had things. And and the mystery part is to the
Mhm.
whole thing. I don't know if I'm a starseed or not.
Right. Right.
So at the end, you find out if I am.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to check it out.
That's a paranormal,
Uh,
medical, and a mystery.
Fascinating. That's
It,
great.
it just came out. It just came out. So I'm going to see how that does.
Hmm.
But I bring that up because we don't know everything. We know what we learn in this universe,
Hmm.
in this time,
Hmm.
and we have to admit, decades ago, things that were thought not possible have happened now.
Hmm.
You know,
That's true.
and every time I watch a movie with my husband, and if there's any science fiction in it at all, he's like, "Oh, that's okay." I go, "Honey, think about some of the movies we saw when we were a kid, and now they happened."
That's so true. The
The
Jetsons, even. Yes.
jets is the first thing I think. The
Yep.
flying cars,
Hmm.
cars driving themselves. Interesting. We really got off topic
We
there.
it's all related, I'm sure.
But it's related because I think for let's see, I'm 76, so that was 5 years ago.
Mhm.
5 years ago. Yeah. So 5 years ago, at 72 years old,
Hmm.
I did my math wrong, but it's okay. 71 years old. I became a writer and wrote 4 books. And
That's
it's,
incredible.
like
Hmm.
life is amazing.
It
Life
is.
is
It is.
amazing. And it's never a thing. Okay, well, I married, I had children, I'm retired. That's it. I'm going to sit down and watch TV.
Hmm. Mm-mm.
No, your life must, it's not over. Keep going. So, so that's now, we talked about body keeps score, and that's what got me off on the tangent. But he believes that all these trauma and things cause the different problems we have in our body, you know, and it's true. I mean, that's just
Absolutely.
part of,
Yeah.
yeah, that I believe that. I do. I totally believe that. So what's a good book to read on this type of therapy? Is there a book you might recommend about?
The Body Keeps a Score does mention it. There isn't anything specific, anything maybe that Francine Shapiro wrote.
Hmm.
She, of course, she died a few years ago, but some of her earlier books do talk about EMDR and the basics of it.
That's each.
Um,
Write it
Nothing
down.
off the top of my head. I know
About,
there's,
Laura Parnell. Didn't she write a book on tapping? I think she wrote a book on tapping.
I think you're right, but
I-
very different than EMDR and the bilateral work.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
more, I think, more the tapping I was talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
see, that's the type of things in our spiritual community, Unity of the Palm Beaches. I love it. I went there. I was Catholic. I was raised Catholic, and I got divorced. And I had every reason to get divorced the first time because he was an alcoholic. I didn't know what a sex addiction was at the time, but obviously he had one because he couldn't stop cheating on me.
Hmm.
And when I got the divorce, the church said to me, "Well, you can't receive communion anymore." And I was pissed. I thought, "What do you mean? I didn't do anything wrong. He did."
Yep, yep, you're right.
So yeah,
Hmm.
so that distanced me from the church.
Hmm.
And for many years, I was non-practicing Catholic
Hmm.
and raised my children Catholic. Um, got married again because I wanted children. Well, that's the only reason I married him. And he was a big mistake, biggest mistake I ever could make. And I tell people, okay, I married 3 times,
Hmm.
but I'm with my third husband 37 years.
Wow. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Well, I always say that means it was them, not me.
Right. It definitely was them, not you.
And the both of them, my whole life would wanted me back. I mean, they would,
Hmm. Hmm.
do certain things. So I know it wasn't me, but yeah, 37 years.
It
So the
also sounds like you really did the work to make different choices.
I
Hmm.
did.
Hmm.
41 years old, I believe I was. When I did get with my current husband, we were both drinking. We both
Hmm.
drank, and we knew each other since high school. And I'm the one that all of a sudden, here's every, I finally got a good guy.
Hmm.
He's a teacher and then everybody loved him. And
Hmm.
yeah, he drank, but I did too. And it was fun drinking.
Hmm.
And my depression got real bad.
Hmm.
And I went somewhere to deal with the drinking a little too much and depression, not knowing it was a rehab. I didn't know.
Wow.
I thought I was going to a spa.
Oh,
It's so funny.
but
And
what happened when you figured it out?
well, when they took the bathing suit and the magazines out of my luggage and said, "You won't be needing these,"
Wow.
but everything happens when it's supposed to happen. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, like I did not drink till I was 21.
Hmm. That's
A
unusual.
lot a lot of
Hmm.
alcoholics start earlier.
Hmm.
I only drank for 20 years, and that was my limit. And then I went, and I'm not going to take too much more of your time on this, but it is kind of funny. So I stayed sober, and when I was there, I had this little altercation with a male um, worker there,
Hmm.
you know, and he did not like me. And he said, I found out, he said, "Oh, she won't last 30 days. She won't last a week."
Oh, that's awful.
And I said, "Oh, I'll
Hmm.
show him."
Watch me. Watch
And
me.
when I yeah, when I had a year sober, I went
Hmm.
there to get my medallion so he could
Hmm.
see that.
Hmm.
And I walked up to him. I said, "You better pay that bet off now."
Hmm. Good for you.
Yeah. But I forgot totally where I was going with that story, but that's okay. That's fine.
So one and done, you went to the spa
Oh
and
no,
oh,
no,
okay. I was gonna say that's unusual too.
'cause you already know my personality. Uh, I was told I was dual diagnosed and cross addicted.
Hmm. Yeah.
So dual diagnosis, of course, was the chronic depression and anxiety disorder, which is like from PTSD and all the
Hmm.
stuff I went through.
Absolutely.
And chemically, they did test and showed that I did have those things going on. They could do that and put on proper medication. And they said cross addicted. I said, "What does that mean?" They said, it means you can be addicted to anything. Your personality, it's like, forget it. You got to be very cautious and vigilant. So 9 months sober, I, of course, gained 50 pounds from the food. I turned to food.
Right.
And I went somewhere for that. I went to
Hmm.
inpatient in California for 3 weeks.
Good for you. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And they did a totally different type of
Hmm.
therapy because it was California. So of course they were
Hmm.
going to do, the more out there stuff, what we thought was out there 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
And I did all that and I came back. And then 5 years sober, I got depressed and I went to Karen Foundation that has a wonderful family of origin program.
Yeah,
You
they're a
only
great
go,
program.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
Do you know about it, the family of
I
origin?
I do,
You
yes.
only take like 5 people.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's only
It's
for like,
coveted in the field for sure. Hmm.
oh my gosh. Well, I was honored to be in that program. And I worked out, now that was more like Gestalt and the screaming and the
Hmm.
really getting it out. And my husband couldn't believe that in 5 days I went from this depressed person to this woman skipping down the road when he came. And but then he said to me, "Are you going to be going away every couple of years?" And my response to him was, "If I have to."
Whatever it takes.
So
Yes,
I'm a very,
bravo.
when I
Hmm.
say I'm going to do something,
Hmm.
you know. Well, it has
Yeah.
been lovely talking to you, Tammy. Is there anything we missed on the subject of your type of therapy or anything you'd like to say that we
Geez, there's so much. But I think I think we covered enough for today. You know what I do want to say, if people are interested in the therapy to seek it out. I mean, it's not just for trauma. Since its inception, it's really used for all kinds of things. And from depression to panic to phobias. Actually, one guy called me a couple of years ago with tinnitus and said it was driving him crazy. And he saw that read an article that EMDR helped. And would I do it? And I looked up the article. I said, well, it's worth a shot. Um, so it's a really deep and effective therapy. So if you're interested in doing it, to go on the EMDRIA website or EMDR International Association,
Mhm.
or on Psychology Today website and sort for EMDR therapist and find someone who'd be able to help you.
And do you have a website
I do.
yourself?
It's tammyvalicenti.com.
Well, that's easy. But
Yeah,
I'll put that in the show notes.
appreciate
And
that. Thank you.
I had fun.
I
I
did too. It was really great getting to know you
yeah,
and to have this great
yeah,
conversation today. I
and we
hope it
might have
helps a lot of
another.
people.
Oh, I know it will. I know it will. So, okay, you guys, I'm going to have some information on the show notes, but this was one of my most enjoyable, I will
Oh,
say,
thank you.
conversations. So I thank you, Miss Tammy Valicenti, for joining us today. And everyone out there, just I hope you got something out of this because I did.
It was an honor. Thank you.